Welcome so much to our presentation. My name is Dr. Amy Bintliff, and I will be presenting the Wellbeing Club, promoting youth well-being through international dialogue and youth leadership. I am a developmental psychologist, and I work at UC San Diego as an assistant teaching professor.
Hi, everybody. My name is Becca Levine. I am a first-year PhD student in the Education Studies Department at UC San Diego. I am also a licensed independent clinical social worker in the state of Massachusetts, where I lived and worked for the past 6 years before moving to San Diego. And I am interested in mental health, well-being, and social emotional learning of youth in school.
Hi, I'm Esmeralda. I'm a fourth-year undergraduate student at UC San Diego. I'm majoring in clinical psychology and minor in education studies, and I'm also a McNair Scholar.
Hi, my name is Demesa. I am a third-year undergraduate student at UC San Diego. My major is in education sciences with a minor in mathematics, and I'm also getting my certification in children's book illustration through UCSD Extension.
And then we have Zaharah Namada, who is one of our community partners. She's the co-director of Africa Education and Leadership Initiative, and we're so excited that she'll be able to join us.
So for today's session, we will be going over the new model Wellbeing, and we will be introducing describing how it is being used. We will also describe community engaged research and co-design, and we will learn the objectives of the Wellbeing Club and discuss how the curriculum can be applied in different global contexts. We will also be going over how to engage in hands-on experience with the model, and we will be hearing from Africa ELI, our international partner located in Uganda.
The Wellbeing Club curriculum is an arts-based curriculum that is also student-centered with hands-on activities involving discussion circles and mindfulness activities, and it's also available freely for international use.
So the Wellbeing Club curriculum has a number of objectives. In the youth curriculum in particular, these objectives include that youth will define a multidimensional framework of well-being for themselves at this point in time. They will recognize, reflect, and identify the impact of spheres of influence on their well-being. They will give voice to assets and challenges. They will utilize artistic expression and multiple domains of expression. They will receive support and validation within and from group members. They will develop social networks and social peer supports. They will identify ways to self-advocate and access resources regarding their own well-being within their spheres of influence. And they will identify oppressions and injustice impacting self or community well-being and develop a youth action plan to empower youth leadership.
So where did this well-being model come from? The history of the well-being model, we've been working with it for about 6 years. It started at the 4W, which is an initiative at the University of Wisconsin-Madison that stands for Women and Wellbeing in Wisconsin and the World. And the framework, there's both an adult version and a child version now, is called Gender Wellbeing in the Ecological Commons, a Participatory Framework. And my colleagues, Sophia Friedson Ridenour, Nancy Kendall, and Lori Dupree Brown really started to work with the model. They'd been engaging in research in 7 countries, including Ghana, Mexico, Spain, and they'd been noticing that with a lot of the well-being models, women's voices were absent. They wanted to situate the lives of marginalized women in the context. So they began having community dialogues, and we continued those community dialogues when I became a PhD student. And we would sit around and we'd actually talk about each dimension of well-being. We'd share what researchers have known about well-being, and then we would ask our participants what's missing, what isn't being represented. And some of the things from the adult model that came up that were very unique to women was the concept of bodily sovereignty, for example. How do I have well-being if it's not safe for me to walk to school? And so through these multiple iterations in 7 different countries, we have been working with this model, and it really contextualizes a feminist framework for well-being. It's an iterative model, which means that it's changing and adapting, and as it changes and adapts, our curriculum changes and adapts as well. If you would like more information about the adult model, you can contact me. And the child model is what we'll kind of be showing you today, because that's what Zaharah is using in Uganda. Part of this rich work comes from theories that guide it. Elders' life course theory that really talks about that changing lives impact developmental trajectories. It matters what the historical time is, the places, the timing in lives, linked lives, and human agency. Another guiding theory is you'll recognize the circles, the concentric circles are very closely based to Bronfman-Brenner's ecological systems theory, and then work on the ecological commons by Flanagan, Byington, Galley, and Sambo, who really said that the environment and the idea of sustainability really needs to be considered in well-being. The petals and dimensions actually are rooted in Martha Nussbaum's expansion of the capabilities approach. She has a wonderful article, Human Capabilities, Feminist Human Beings, and Carol Riff's work on eudaimonic well-being, also iterative work by the 4W researchers. So when we think about well-being, there's two ways to think about it. You have this idea of hedonia, which is what can I do to avoid making me feel bad, and when do I feel good? You also have this idea of eudaimonia, which goes deeper. It has more components. Eudaimonia recognizes that well-being is multidimensional, and that part of those dimensions have to do with how do we become our best self, our most true self, in the sense of Aristotle. The other thing that we do with this work is we really focus on community-based participatory action research. So we partner with communities and we find out what it is they need. So for example, one of the first well-being clubs was founded because a school district that I had worked with said, we really need after school and in-school programming for girls with histories of family stressors. And so I partnered with the district. They looked at all the aspects of the curriculum. We were able to modify and adjust based on their need. And then we ran 30 hours of a well-being club after school. And there are some findings that I want to show you about. But first, I want to dive into the model. If you look at this model, you'll see that there are petals, and those are dimensions. So those are all the components that make up what well-being is. You'll also see these concentric circles that are spheres of influence, moving from family, peers, relationships, local, state, global, and environmental issues that impact the self. Based on Elders' theory, the self is really connected to identity, time, and place. And based on feedback from numerous partners, culture is an integral part of self. And so the self, we recognize that there are different dimensions that may be strengths or challenges, and that those effects are coming from those spheres of influences. So if I have a strong, healthy, positive relationship with one person, but a really negative relationship with another, my mutual care may be affected. And so this model teaches people to not only identify dimensions and really contextualize them, but it also helps them to see what are these concentric circles that are spheres of influence, and how are they negatively or positively impacting my well-being. This is a great model to use for those of you who are care providers, because it gives you insights into things that you may otherwise miss.
So building off of what Amy was just discussing, this model can really help with contextualizing needs within the community. So the first thing is that curriculum is written to be adaptable to a variety of contexts. We do this in each module by writing overall objectives, providing example scripts, and showing sample art activities, while being clear that we welcome any adaptations that the facilitators and participants see fit. We also write using simple, clear language so that the modules are accessible and easily translated. With the help of the model, facilitators and participants are invited to discuss topics, concerns, and ideas that are most salient to them. So one example of this is thinking back to the dimensions that Amy was just talking about. One activity is that participants early on in the activity in the day, they'll look at this module and they'll pick a dimension that has been a strength for them this week, and they'll also pick a dimension that has been a challenge for them this week. And through these conversations, they're able to think about their needs, their strengths, their challenges within their community related to each of those different dimensions. This type of activity and the rest of the modules really allow for facilitators to gain insight into participants' well-being and how that changes over time. And it also allows for participants to feel less alone because they might hear that another participant is going through something similar, has overcome something similar. So they feel like their challenges and strengths are really part of the community, and they can hear about what's going on for others as well.
So initial studies that we've worked on with youth that are in progress or in preparation for publication, the dissertation that I was speaking of is published, but there's many other strands that we want to get out to the community. Initial studies show that using the model increases student engagement in any kind of after-school club. It allows students to voice concerns so that partners really know where to align interventions. When I work with school districts, the district partners are able to see where wraparound services are needed immediately. It also increases student voice and self-confidence. We have many different components to the curriculum, including talking circles, where each person has an equal opportunity to speak and to share. And self-confidence really grows through those experiences. It also creates space for peer friendships and peer learning opportunities because much of the activities are peers engaging in small conversations with one another. Youth also recognize that one aspect of lower well-being does not define them. So many of the youth I've worked with that had been diagnosed with depression, for example, felt that they could say, I have depression, but that doesn't mean that I don't have well-being. That they could set goals for themselves regarding improving their well-being. And if we were with you live, we would be doing this activity together in a large room. And since we're all virtual right now, we still want you to be able to do some hands-on learning and jump in with some activities. So there are two well-being activities that we do as part of the curriculum. And generally, we have materials and art supplies all over the room, and people can kind of choose the types of tools that they'll use. We're going to use Google Drive because we know that many of you have access to this. So I'll describe, first of all, students need a way to conceptualize the dimensions of well-being. They need to be able to look at each puddle and really understand what that means and how it might resonate in their lives. We do an activity where we break students into small groups, and then we pair them with one or two dimensions. And the dimensions are the thing that they're going to focus on during this time. We're going to give you a moment to scan this code so that you can actually jump into a well-being group activity that we've designed just for the 8th annual conference. So if you can take a moment, and then I'll show you what it looks like and give you an example. So to provide space for participants to really learn and understand what these dimensions are about, we give the following directions, which is really helpful. Read the definitions for your assigned dimension. Working with your group, you will record ideas about the meaning of each dimension, what it might look like or feel like to experience positive examples of the dimensions, and then you'll describe some examples from your daily lives. So for example, mutual care. In the youth model, we say that the definition is people take care of each other and have trusting relationships with family and friends. So we kind of started this activity for you, and we really want you to dive in and look at a dimension and make some comments. So the students will kind of go through this process. Mutual care means what? So I said that mutual care really means when my husband or partner does the dishes if I make dinner. There's another example, the love I have for my grandparents. It looks and feels like a hug from my grandma or my daughter leaning her head against my shoulder. What are examples of mutual care in your daily life experiences? And this is when students can just list a whole bunch of things. So they might say, my teachers, they might say a youth group. So some of our examples are when you get a random phone call from a loved one or checking in with one another. And I've been consistently doing this activity with my university students since the pandemic started. And this really provides like a historical, instant kind of look at what's going on in the lives of the people that you're working with. And so, Becca, if you'll scroll down for a moment, participants can see that every dimension is here, and you can take some time and dive in and type. And then we'll look at what the 8th annual conference attendees have had to say about some of these dimensions. We'll also be giving you a blank copy of this in a moment that Christian will tell you about that you can use with youth and adult participants within your settings. I'm going to hand it over to Esmeralda right now, and she's going to share another activity, which is a self-care quilt.
Thank you, Amy. So yes, so another activity that has been used for the Wellbeing Club is the self-care quilt. So the self-care quilt in normal circumstances, we have participants, grab a piece of fabric and write on that piece of fabric any strategies or anything that makes them feel good or promotes positive well-being. And usually what we do at the end is we kind of each participant gets their square and puts it all together. We all combine our squares and we kind of patch it all together and create a quilt. However, in a virtual environment, what we've done is that we've created a document where participants can actually go into the document and choose one of the squares and kind of decorate it. They can change the colors, the font, they could add pictures, emojis. And so we ask participants to again pick one of these, one of the squares or two, or how many you're comfortable, and include something that promotes positive well-being or makes you feel better in general. So we normally, again, ask you that you kind of personalize this, and we will be having this activity shared amongst the attendees from this conference. So you might see a couple of examples there when you open up the document.
If you like the following activities and you would like to implement it in your own communities, we have left you two copies of the resources. So feel free to either click on the link or copy it. We shorten it for you, or you can actually scan it. And once you scan it with the QR scanner, it'll automatically redirect it to the link itself. And once that link is activated, it'll automatically be stored into your shared with me file on Google Drive. So feel free to use it in your own leisure, and feel free, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us about it.
And I'm now going to reintroduce our partner, Zaharah. Zaharah and I actually met at a conference called UC Links here in California. She had been in the United States, and I presented about the well-being model. And I found out about the work that she was doing in Uganda with refugee children and with youth and women within her community. And we immediately clicked. And so I want to introduce Zaharah Namada, the co-director of Africa ELI, a wonderful organization that's doing amazing things. And she is one of our partners that's engaged in community-based research and community-based knowledge sharing that's using this model and the Wellbeing Club curriculum. So I'm going to hand it over to Zaharah.
Thank you so much, Amy, for inviting me to present with you at the 8th Global Wellbeing in Social Change Conference. Well, again, my name is Zaharah Namada, and I am the Co-Executive Director for Africa Education and Leadership Initiative in Uganda. I am also a Commonwealth Scholar at the University of Glasgow, undertaking my master's degree in Education, Public Policy and Equity. Africa Education is a non-governmental organization that is empowering refugee girls from South Sudan, but also local Ugandan girls and boys with opportunities in education, leadership, entrepreneurship, and health for self and community development. For the 10 years of existence, we started from South Sudan, but in 2006 we had to move to Uganda because of the political instability that was occurring in South Sudan. Our mapping in Uganda was evident that 70% of our girls had fled South Sudan to seek for refuge in Ugandan refugee camps that included Bidibidi, Palabek reception camp, as well as Rhino camp in northern Uganda. For the years that I've been working with Africa ELI, we've been facing a challenge of our girls going through post-traumatic stress disorder effect. And in 2019, I was in position to present at the University of California in Berkeley, University Community Links Conference, and that is where I met Amy. Amy was presenting about well-being and the well-being curriculum, and with that we connected and saw that the well-being curriculum would be beneficial to our Africa ELI girls. In 2020, we were in position to connect again, and Amy shared the well-being curriculum with me, and when I read it, it was very amazing and so transformational before even undertaking a pilot. So we've been working together with her team, my team, and her team have been working back and forth to ensure that the well-being curriculum is contextualized within the context of Uganda, and that it tries to solve the problems that not only Africa ELI girls are experiencing, but even other children within other communities. And what has been so amazing, this year in February, we were in position to instruct a pilot, and we will be playing a video to show you how the children and the facilitators reacted because of instructing this curriculum. The Wellbeing Club curriculum is a practical and theoretical curriculum that actively engages participants through effective communication, teamwork, use of mindfulness activities, and also expression through the use of art. This curriculum was designed by a team of educators and students at the University of California at San Diego, and their role is to empower children and youth to realize their well-being through self and paying attention to the different spheres of influence for their well-being. Africa Education and Leadership Initiative comes in as a partner to localize the curriculum and contextualize the needs of the local Ugandan beneficiaries into the curriculum. We are joined by our local partner, African Women and Girls Organization, to offer external feedback for this pilot.
In case of an activity, we inform the mother. For example, if a child sets off from home, they'll give us a call. So this way we get to know how far they've reached and the range of time that they will be here. One thing that when a child gets here, they'll have to take their temperature, we get to know. Then after that, we register them, we sanitize, and then everyone must have a mask on them.
In all that, we are learning, one of the things would be the components of the well-being, where we have one, human connections, we have freedom and safety, we have thriving, lifelong health, and all those we teach them, and we are teaching them for students to know where do they belong, which of them matters most.
We also look at the spheres of influence. As students, they are learning that self is the center of the spheres. We can't do without self. Without self, that means nothing is going to go on, no activity is going to take place.
And looking at this, we actually engage them to know that we can't do alone, we can't stand alone. So we have students and they have to make a web in themselves, meaning that you have to hold on this to make a web, meaning that we are all interconnected with each other. One funny part is that when I lose my holding, it doesn't mean that the web will fall down. The other people will remain connected. So we are learning and teaching the youth that we need each other in the human connections. And then there's this one thing that we're introducing for the curriculum part in class, the discussions. From every activity, we do discussions.
The Wellbeing program is so nice. I've enjoyed it and I've really loved it. It's so amazing.
I found this program so beneficial because it teaches us, it taught me things that I didn't know in life. In life, it has taught me that in life we all need each other, and in life there are always hardships, and there will be always the times when you're high and the times when you're low.
I learned to concentrate, let's say, like when you're stressed, giving us breathing exercises helps you to concentrate, and also it teaches you how to be well in life, how to be in life, because like thriving, long life, human connection, all that you need in life.
Then there's what we call artistic learning. We draw. We make students do the activity themselves. They can draw, they can write on the topic.
The painting was just so hilarious. You could look at someone who drew a face of sad and you're like, hey! It was just so interesting. You draw and then you laugh, you get to laugh together, it has just been so fantastic.
I made friends with the members, and my fellow youth members, and the organizers. I made friends, a lot of friends, like the whole team.
They have to share ideas. Remember, the ideas are coming from different students. So at the end of the day, they come up with a common knowledge.
In this group and the other group, what did you agree on? So you find that sometimes you have 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 that every group has raised, and that's what we call the community agreements. In one of our first module, the introductions, we asked them to talk about what they want us to do or what they expect, the expectations. And in the community agreements, they came up with they need time to play and they need time for break and lunch, which was obvious, but of course they had even to mention it. We had it, but they mentioned it. So they are free to have that small break to play.
And a mask, for example, if they are playing, it's not so comfortable. But the fact that immediately when they get here, we take care of them, at least we know that there are no cases of COVID, everyone is okay. So this way, with the interactions, we don't feel so much by that, because at least we know they are safe, and the place they are into is also a safe place. They didn't know about the components of well-being, some could not share with either their parents or anyone that lives around them, but at least they got to know the value of a community, the value of a family, how people have to live together, people have to do things together, people have to, interact. It has been a very good training, and I recommend it to be launched elsewhere, maybe in schools or even in communities.
I would like to tell my fellow youth that if you miss this, you missed a lot, because this was something that you wouldn't miss out on. And I encourage other people to come and join, because it is a very nice, fantastic. I just don't know the correct way to describe it. It was just so nice. So I encourage my fellow youth to come and join.
I like to appreciate the whole organization because of their effort and also their teamwork to bring up the program, because it's helpful to us, the youth.
Our participants have been very excited to be a part of this, and stories that they tell, stories of learning, of working in teams, of voicing how they feel. And this is the whole essence of well-being for children and youth in our communities.
And this is the curriculum that is bringing joy and life to the classroom, to actually the traditional boring classes that we used to have or that we are having per se.
Thank you so much, the University of California, San Diego, especially Amy and her team for coming up with this amazing idea. We hope that it is not only going to impact the group that we started with, but it will be scaled up in the different schools and including universities in Uganda. We appreciate your effort and we are very proud to be a part of this curriculum. Beneficiaries within the Wellbeing Club were not only Africa ELI students within the pilot. We had children from our partners, and those are children who are under orphanages, and we had children within the communities, and we also had some of the representative beneficiaries from Africa ELI. All of them had a very intense but amazing experience.
I've left some references for you so that if you're curious about some of the publications that have come out, we actually have one that was out that we worked with sex trafficking survivors on this model, and they really had an impact on the dimensions as they are today. There's also references to some of the theoretical frames that I alluded to earlier that are grounding and rooting this work. So feel free to take a look at the references. And then as we wrap up, please contact us if you're interested in using the model. We do plan on rolling out a website called the Wellbeing Lab within the next month. Christian and Esmeralda and Rebecca are all helping to get that together. And we're doing final edits of the curriculum right now. Because the curriculum is iterative, there may be updates as we move along and get more feedback from partners. So if you or your organization is interested in partnering and doing some of this work with youth, just reach out and let us know. We also invite any kind of comments or feedback. Thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.